That didn't last too long though, and I started taking guitar lessons after that for about the next 5 years or so.
So you from about so how old were you when you started to take the lessons then?
I was about 10, I think, when I started taking lessons. But I had played on the guitar for about 2 years before that, just trying to make up my own stuff.
Had you been listening to music very much at that time?
No, not really. Just what I was doing, I wasn't listening to much else, really.
What kind of stuff would you make up on your own? Like, how would you describe it?
Just, try to make anything, really. Make it sound at all. Didn't do much,
When did you first seriously start listening to music?
Oh, probably a couple years later, 5th, 6th grade. Just listening to Kiss and stuff like that, and some Beatles and Leonard Skinner, stuff like that.
So did you immediately identify with that kind of stuff because of the guitar-based sound, or just because it was the popular stuff at the time?
Just rock and roll, really. It was just the first time I started listening to anything rock, really, and so I liked it just for what it was,
And this was in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And what is it, Omaha?
Yeah.
So, you were listening to radio and even buying records then?
Yeah, once, about 4 years after, I started playing. Yeah.
When did it all kind of come together? I mean, I'm sure after a while that you must have noticed, well, heck, I'm playing guitar. I mean, this stuff sounds like something I could do. What artist first kind of linked together you as a guitarist and you as a music fan?
Well, right from the beginning, I knew that was all I wanted to do. It wasn't, I didn't decide later on that, but just listening to, people like, Randy Rhoads and Van Halen and stuff like that made me really want to do it, even more,
Did you have a chance to listen to the first Van Halen album when it first came out, or was it something you went back to?
No, I didn't. I didn't really get to hear that album until maybe 3 or 4 years after it came out. That's when I first heard Van Halen, really. It was the album had already been out for a while, so I didn't really know who he was till way afterwards.
Who was your first guitar idol then? Who did you idolize?
Gosh, I really didn't have one at first. I just liked bands, really. When I did hear Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads, though, they were probably my favorites. Yeah.
So you first started trying to emulate them?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Was it very difficult? Did you find it relatively easy compared to the other guys around you?
Well, I didn't really try that hard to imitate people. I would just try to learn their stuff, but I wouldn't, spend hours and hours trying to imitate somebody else. If I couldn't do it right away, I just, forgot about it. Do
you remember the first song you copied on the guitar?
Probably be what's that one song called? Soul Man. Probably that one.
Soul Man?
Yeah. Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah, The Blues Brothers version, huh?
Yeah.
So kind of getting down the Steve Cropper licks there, huh?
Yeah.
And what was your first difficult one you copied?
Probably I don't know, some AC/DC stuff, probably. Yeah.
Was that kind of a tough nut to crack? Did you have to work long, hard to?
Yeah. I remember trying pretty hard on some of that stuff. Yeah.
How long did you used to lock yourself away there and practice on the guitar?
All day. Basically, till it got dark out, and then I'd go outside.
This was from about what age?
Oh, probably from about 13 to 16.
So pretty much high school was spent behind the guitar, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
When did you first start to show the signs of your own style? When could you feel that coming on?
Probably, towards the end of high school. Yeah, probably towards the end of high school, but not really until about 3 years ago, I don't think.
That's
not not big time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Like, not to where it was anything, any big deal,
But like still in high school, had you already kind of developed sort of a reputation?
Yeah. I had already started, developing some sort of a sound, really. When I played, by the time I was in my last year of high school, I could play fluently enough to call myself an okay guitar player. So.
Were you making money that time, or were you still just an amateur?
No, I've never really made any money at the guitar yet. So.
You were just like doing part-time jobs and stuff like that back then, huh?
Yeah. Well, even when I was in bands that played, we didn't make any money. So.
Do you think that's because you sort of stuck to your own sound and wouldn't do like gigs that might get you at least a little bit of pocket money?
Well, we did. We played gigs where we'd get paid like $2,500 a week and stuff like that. But after all the expenses, we were left with about $25 a piece. So, because we were on the road, But yeah, I've never really made any good money off it yet. But I don't care about that. So.
It might be kind of difficult to explain. I mean, sort of difficult to summarize your own style. But how would you describe your technique as, say, compared to somebody else?
It's basically, it's sort of heavy blues. I'd call it technical heavy blues, really. Maybe, yeah, that's what I'd call it.
How about
kind of like a? Pardon me?
Oh, go ahead.
I'd basically have to call it like a technical heavy blues, really.
Meaning that you kind of stick to the blues feeling, but you sort of add technical stuff as well.
Yeah, I like to. I don't like it as simple as most blues people would play it. I like to throw in more notes, I guess, than a real blues player would.
Are you compared much to anybody else, or is there anybody else you sort of strive to become like?
No, I don't. I try to sound as much like myself as I can. It's a hard thing to do though, but I keep trying.
Would you? There's a question here about like how you would categorize yourself, which is kind of a hard question to answer. It's asking, do you consider yourself more rock, jazz, fusion, or country, or I guess blues for that matter?
Well, it's obviously it's more to the rock side, but there's all that other stuff added in too. Just because I like a lot of different stuff, and I try to throw it in whenever I can. So I'd have to say all of the above. Throw it in a big pot and stir it up. But it comes out sounding more rock because that's I've been playing rock more than any other stuff. So.
And the album is all instrumentals.
Yeah.
There's no you have no intention of making something with vocals.
Yeah, eventually someday. Probably not for a couple albums yet, though.
Is that because have you worked with singers very much?
No, I haven't. That's mainly why I ended up doing an instrumental album, is because I never really had a singer, So I just ended up working on my own stuff, Eventually, though, when I do find a singer that I like, I'd like to, just start working on something in that kind of area.
And I guess if you work with a singer, it would sort of automatically limit you more to rock and roll type of stuff or bluesy type of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can't have the guy off twiddling his thumbs while you guys are working away on some instrumental.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, that type of format brings to mind names such as Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Jeff Beck. Did you get much into their stuff?
Yeah, I've listened to all their stuff. I think a lot of that stuff, inspired me to want to do instrumental stuff because I realized you didn't have to have a singer to make an album,
Mm-hmm. I suppose the pioneer effort would have to be Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a record you listen to very much?
Not a whole lot. I do have it, though. And I like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I usually don't sit around listening to guitar players very much, I listen to more other stuff than I do just guitar players, really.
Oh, they're right. When you see those guys play, do you ever think like, shit, how did that guy come up with that? Or I can do better than that. Do you find yourself sort of subconsciously comparing yourself to them?
I don't compare, I don't try to compare anything, because everyone's, different in a sense, but, I think, whenever I do hear somebody, it definitely inspires me, someone good like that, it makes me want to really play, but it also makes me want to be more different also at the same time,
Do you ever find
you want to be?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It just makes me want to just have my own sound, just as much as anybody else, really.
Do you ever find yourself feeling frustrated because you play something that it sounds too much like somebody else, or it's just not what you had in mind? Do you have difficulty?
Yeah. It's some people just evolve with their own sound, and some people have to try to get it, And I wasn't the type of person that just evolved, I had to search for it a lot more than some people would, because I grew up a little bit later than a lot of these players that are making it now, so they keep scratching off places to go, so because they keep coming up with stuff, so you have to keep searching for other places to make your own sound.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's kind of a young man's realm? Because most of the guys who are doing kind of what you're doing are 35 or under, and Jeff Beck is still sort of plugging away there, but there's really nobody else in his age group.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just up for grabs for anybody. Jeff Beck, he's I think he's like 45 or so, but he's I think he's a lot better than anybody else right now. It's probably because he's been playing so long.
What do you think makes Beck sort of better than the rest of the pack?
Just experience. The amount of years he's been holding that thing in his hand, really.
So like, in terms of his actual playing, though, like what separates him from the rest? Just the overall. When you hear him play, he just has a more command over the instrument. It seems like it's just because he's been playing it so long, it just seems to come out second nature. He doesn't do any one or certain thing that makes him better. I just think he's just been at it longer, and it shows, Maybe being more comfortable with your instrument makes you a little more spontaneous, a little more fresh.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to try as hard,
Interesting comment here. The guy who made up the questions here says that when you play sort of country style, it reminds him of Steve Morse. Is that somebody you've listened to very much?
No, I don't. I've heard that comparison before. Really, I like his playing, but I haven't. I've never really listened to him very much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 5 or 10 times I've heard him. That's about it.
And your style of do you like sometimes? Forgive me for not being familiar with your music, but do you play sort of bluegrass style sometimes? something?
Yeah, it's similar, except it's done with a heavy guitar sound. You know, I play something that maybe a type of player like that would play, but I don't change my amp settings at all. You know, I still crank it up loud and distorted. You know.
And do you finger pick, or you just use a regular flat pick?
I finger pick a lot of the time.
Do you think that's a certain style that sets you apart from a lot of the other guitar players?
Yeah, probably, because it seems like the majority of people are using a pick, and I think you get a lot different kind of a tone when you just use your fingers, and the whole approach is a lot different. So that's why I lean towards that a lot more. Just that's one way to help gain your own style. You know.
Well, when the volume is up and it's kind of distorted, doesn't playing with your fingers kind of make the sound a lot more muddy? Wouldn't it ring a lot more clearly if you hit it with a flat pick?
No, not really. It actually sounds clearer with your fingers because you can pluck each note individually instead of strumming them all at a time.
And it says here that you use a capo sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe you could explain that for us.
I just basically put it on to change keys, and a lot of guitar riffs are written around certain keys, and this way you don't have to worry about that. You can just strap it on any key you want.
What songs do you use it on?
Let's see. I use it on Laughing Stacks and Runaway Train and Deja Blues and Rain in the Tunnel and Hula Hoops.
And you just use it simply to change keys. It's not like easier to play certain phrases with the capo on?
Well, it's just basically just to switch keys. Sometimes I'll use it. I'll put it down on the lower end of the fretboard, and then I'll bounce off open strings with it, which actually aren't open anymore. They're the capo notes. So which some of that stuff I can't do live because sometimes I'll just put it on during the lead parts. When I'm recording my lead parts, I'll do it with the capo. So sometimes if the stretch is close enough, I'll have to stretch to get the notes. Other times I just have to leave the part out and write a different part when I play live.
When you say that the open note, what exactly do you mean?
When I bounce off the open strings?
The open strings.
Well, instead of, a lot of people would do a lick where they're bouncing off open notes, there's only certain keys you can do that in. But when you put the capo on, it kind of moves your so-called open notes up, to whatever fret you put the capo on. So those are now your pretend open notes, and you can bounce off those from way up high, and just do certain types of things.
Okay, there's another question here about your style of actually hitting the strings here. We talked about finger picking a second ago. How about for playing quicker lines, and for when you play rhythm guitar? How are you actually striking the strings?
Well, a lot of my rhythm guitar playing is done with my fingers also, except for the parts that are obvious. And whenever I'm playing really, really fast, that's always done with a pick. I can't play fast with my fingers. So.
How when you're playing rhythm? How are you stroking the strings?
Well, most of my rhythm guitar playing, when you hear it, it's obviously done with your fingers. Really, most of it. It's not your typical rhythm playing. It's a lot of plucking and stuff like that.
Plucking.
So it's most of my rhythm playing isn't really chords ringing out. It's a lot of active stuff.
You don't brush the strings with a couple fingers then?
Sometimes, but most of my rhythm playing is parts that are plucking or pulling off and stuff like that. So.
How about when you tap with your right fingers? It sounds sometimes like you're using two fingers. Two fingers at once.
No, I've never I've never tapped like that. It's always just one finger. I don't know if I had an example. I guess I could explain that, but no, I've never done that before. So.
Is it something you do very much of, tapping?
Just every now and then. You know, it's not a big part of my playing.
Yeah, it's kind of become sort of cliched over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
How about the record? How satisfied are you with it, looking back in retrospect?
Well, I'm happy with the ideas, but I'm not really happy with the guitar tone. You know, but you know, I am really happy with everyone else's playing, and I'm happy with the actual playing overall. But the sound quality, the production of it, it's not my favorite thing now.
Well, how do you think it could be improved?
Just my experience in a studio, really. You know, the more I do it, the better it'll get, really. So you know, it's no one's fault but my own. So you know,
like what are the main faults with the guitar tone, though? Like how would you explain?
Well, just learning how to get your guitar on tape as good as the sound that comes out of your amp. You know, just being aware of your tone, really. You know.
That's not a problem you have live, then, obviously.
Not really, no. It's mostly just in the studio.
So it's just learning the ins and outs of the studio.
Yeah.
And it says here that I guess a former member of Dokken, Jeff Pilson, and James Kotick, is that how you pronounce his name? He used to be Kingdom Come around the record.
Yeah.
Any stories to relate about the recording there? Did things go as planned, or were there any setbacks in the studio?
Oh no, it went great. They recorded. We recorded the whole album real quick. Especially them. They did their parts both in 2 days, so it went really good. Sounds good.
Was that your first major work in the studio, or have you ever played on anybody else's recordings?
I made my own 24-track recording before that. That's where I did my demo at. I did that in my hometown.
How is it playing in more of a high-class professional studio?
Well, the studio I recorded that was pretty good too. So they were both pretty nice studios.
How about the other guys? Do they sort of gel with you okay in terms of style?
Yeah. They're both really nice guys. They had fun doing it.
How about like in terms of their style? Can they latch onto your style right away? You have no problem communicating with them musically?
Oh no, they're both really intelligent, so it went great.
How about in terms of like feeling though? Do you guys basically have similar tastes, or I mean?
Well, yeah, Jeff's a really musical type person. You know, he likes lots of different kind of things, and they both had fun playing it. You know, they thought it was kind of odd, you know, but they had fun doing it. You know.
I mean, the reason I asked that is because you know them being in bands like Dokken and Kingdom Come, there's just more sort of straight ahead rock and roll, as opposed to you know, technically demanding stuff. That, you know, you play.
Well, no, they did fine. It was great. You know, I like their playing, you know, better than mine on the album, so.
So you're pretty harsh on yourself then, huh?
Yeah.
Do you ever sit back and listen to that album, or is it something you want to kind of forget about and just go on to?
No, I don't listen to it very much. No.
Is that because you just don't like to hear yourself play, or?
Yeah, I don't really like to hear myself play.
Is that right? Because I mean, you know, obviously some guitarists are kind of, you know, I'm sure impressed with their own playing there and what they've done. Or do you think that's not the case? Do you think most guitar players are pretty self-conscious?
I think a lot of them are. Yeah.
Like when you're listening to other guys, do you ever like sort of wince and think, "Jesus Christ, how does this guy get away with this kind of stuff?"
No, not really. I think, you know, if the person enjoys what they're doing, that's all that matters, really. You know. If they're really having fun, then that's all that counts, really.
Again, it says here on the record that you use a lot of like harmony notes when you play the guitar.
Yeah, I like to overdub a lot of stuff. It's just, you know, it's what I hear in my head when I write the song. So, you know, I put it on tape.
And what do you do about that live?
Just work around it any sort of way I can. There's a lot of different ways, you know. just to try to boost up and make it a lot more, energetic. That helps out.
Mm-hmm. Are you on tour right now?
No, I'm not. I'm playing little places here and there, but it's not a tour. I'll be playing for like a couple weeks, and then I'll be going home after that.
Why are you in England?
I'm doing some appearances at like record stores and music stores and stuff like that.
When you play live these days, who are you playing with? Is it?
Right now I'm playing to a background tape.
Oh, I see.
Just the drums and bass, yeah.
When you go on the road, who will you be taking with you?
Just a couple friends from my hometown, Jeff Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be on drums, and we haven't yet found a bass player yet, but shouldn't be too hard.
So it seems like when it comes to playing with other people, you're not that picky. You're just, I guess you're looking for somebody who's technically proficient, but you're not that demanding in terms of style, huh?
No, not really. Just someone who likes to have a good time, play tight.
Do you think the type of show you do is very demanding for a drummer or a bass player?
Oh, not a whole lot, no. Just someone who keeps a good beat, really.
And you pretty much take charge of the rest, huh?
Yeah, just have fun,
It says here that right now there seem to be a lot of amazing guitar players out there. I guess in that respect you've got a lot of competition. Do you think people are looking for faster and faster players, or what exactly makes a difference right now among guitar players?
Just people that have their own sound. Really, the speed thing doesn't really matter. It's just whoever writes the best songs wins, I guess. That's the way it seems to be coming out these days,
Do you think that your songs can hold their own composition-wise, or do you think people are getting your stuff more because of the virtuosity?
I never wrote for anybody else anyway, really, I write for myself, and if I like it, then that's about all I can say, really, If no one else liked it, there's nothing I could do about it anyway, so I just write.
Go on.
I write a song and do it the best I can, and if no one likes it, that's fine too, because as long as I like it,
That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, you can't write for everyone in the world, because obviously, there's going to be people that just will never like your stuff no matter what, and there'll be people that do, and those are the people that hopefully will, help you out, and, have enjoyment.
One of the more surprising things about Joe Satriani is that he seems to draw even the non-guitar audience. Do you think most of your fans are hard-nosed guitarists, or what's the situation?
I don't think. I think the majority of them will probably be guitar players. I think. I don't think I'll be, attracting too much non-guitar players. Probably a couple that are interested in that stuff, but it'll mostly be guitar players. I have a feeling. I don't know why. I just have that feeling.
Maybe you could tell us about your equipment. First of all, what guitars do you use?
I use Yamaha guitars and Marshall amps.
Exactly what kind of models Yamaha guitars do you use?
They're custom-made Pacificas.
Custom-made?
Yeah.
How about, do they all have arms, or?
Yeah. I switch bars, from time to time, so I don't really have a particular one that I use.
And how about strings?
I got to ask you a question. I've got to leave for the airport. Okay. So if there's any maybe certain things they want to sum up with the whole thing.
Yeah, this is like the last question here.
Okay.
A question on the equipment, and then one last message for our readers.
Okay.
And you're out of here.
Okay. All right.
How about the strings?
Oh, I just use Diodarios 9.5 through 42.
And you exactly what kind of model amps are you using right now?
Just JCM 800s.
Marshalls.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and how about your modifiers, boxes?
Pardon me?
How about your boxes?
Oh, I really don't use any. Maybe a distortion box here or there. That's about it.
What's that?
Just a distortion box, you know.
Uh-huh.
Like a tube screamer. That's all I use, really.
Otherwise, you just modify the sound through the amp?
No, it's stock amp, distortion box, really.
Okay, and the one last question here is one last message for our readers here. They're mostly young, aspiring guitarists. What message would you have for those kids?
Practice and as much as you can, and don't imitate people too much. You know, don't sit around and play other people's stuff more than you make up your own stuff. You know, make the majority of your time instead of other people's time. You know, don't sit around and play other people's stuff when you could be writing your own stuff.
Okay. Well, great then. Thanks a lot, Michael, and I wish you the best of luck. When do you think you'll make it out to Japan?
In October. I'll be out there in October.
For what?
For the trade show.
For the trade show?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hope to see you out here.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, well,
that was a great interview.
Okay, well, good luck.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.